What's going on, guys? I'm Bill and welcome to Bill's How To. Today I'm going to show you guys the easiest way to paint ceilings. Let's get straight into it, guys. Let's do this. Alright guys, so this is one of the ceilings that we're going to be painting today. So I'll quickly show you guys a before and then an after once we're done. This is something I get asked a lot about in the questions. How do you paint a ceiling? Because a lot of people struggle to get a perfect finish on the ceiling. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, you're always looking up, so it breaks your neck, makes things a bit difficult to get a nice consistent finish. You get tired usually by the time you get to the other side, and then you forget where you're up to because it's a flat paint. So what we've got here is a ceiling full of stains and markings, as you guys can see. If we have a look at the cornices here, you can't really tell too much at the moment, but once I put that fresh coat of paint on, you'll see just how discolored all of this is. You can see it looks almost yellow along this side here, and over here it's looking a little bit grey. But I'm going to show you guys a few tips and tricks to show you the easiest way that I've found to paint ceilings and get a perfect finish every single time. So before we get started, just a couple quick things that we're going to be using. We've got just a standard bucket, ceiling paint, and we've got a 63mm brush that we're going to be using to cut in, which I'm going to show you guys how to do. My little secret weapon here, and probably the most important tip if you want to take something out of this whole video, is make sure that you use good quality paint and a good quality roller. That's something that I can't stress enough. No matter how good you are at painting, if you've got bad quality paint or a bad quality roller, you're going to get a horrible finish. So the roller that we're using here is a 460mm roller, so you can see it's fairly large. That makes things a lot easier. Not only is it twice the size of a standard roller, so a standard roller is 270. This is going to allow me to finish a ceiling twice as quick, which means I don't have to look up at the ceiling for that long. Also, it's going to reduce the lap marks. So every time you do a pass, you need to get rid of those lap marks, make sure that everything's all feathered off and flattened out so that you don't have any markings on the ceiling. And by using a wider roller, you have to do less flattening of those lap marks. So good quality roller, and what we're using here is a carrier that's made out of metal. So because of the size of the roller here, we have to use a larger size carrier, and this one here is made out of metal, which means I have to be careful up along the edges of the cornices because I can damage them. So these ones here do dig into the cornice and will scratch it, so you just have to be careful not to go too close. But make sure you're looking to get in good quality roller. It's going to make the world of difference for you guys. Good quality paint, once again. Make sure you don't buy something cheap because it'll end up on your face instead of being on the ceiling. So the first thing we do is cut in our cornices. Now, depending on whether or not you're going to be painting the walls determines whether or not you want to get paint on the actual wall. So if you are painting the walls, then I'm going to show you guys exactly how I do it. If you're not painting the wall and you simply want to paint the cornices and the ceiling, just simply apply some masking tape along the base here of the cornice. Once again, good quality tape make the world of difference. It's not going to bleed through. It's not going to tear the tape, the paint off the wall once you remove that tape. So in my case here, we're going to be painting both the walls and the ceiling. So what I always do is I cut all the way down. You can see there I'm going down a fair bit underneath the cornice. And the reason why I do this is it's going to allow me to get a nice crisp line once I paint the walls. So by painting the walls later on, once everything's dry, I can get my brush, create a nice little sharp edge or sharp line right there on the base. It's going to fill in everything on the bottom with paint, and you're going to have a much better finish. So once again, just simply paint that bottom section, make sure you feather everything off, and you can see there how much difference there is between the two colours. So you can see how yellow this is now once that we've painted a fresh coat of paint here on the right side. So once you put on your paint, simply swipe across like that with the tip of the brush, and you're going to be able to feather everything off. Once you've done that, you come up to the ceiling here, and once again, usually just the width of the brush is enough. Make sure you feather everything out once again. That way, if it dries by the time you come around to roll it, it won't make a difference and you're going to have a perfect transition. So just make sure that you always feather off your edges. Also, because we're using that larger roller, like I said, it's got a metal carrier, and that's going to risk damaging the cornices. So what I always do is just simply cut in a little bit wider on the ceiling. So we can bring it in just a little bit wider, so that makes I don't have to go as close to the edge there. And once again, in this little corner here, I just bring that out wider. Once again, just so that carrier is a little bit larger than usual. So repeat the same process around the light fittings. Once again, about the width of the brush is usually sufficient. However, because we are using that larger roller, what I always like to do is just bring that out almost twice as wide. That way I don't have to get too tight and hard up against the actual light fitting, which you guys will see in a second. But repeat the exact same process, just take your time, make sure you cut in nicely, feather everything off. And we're going to have to do this twice because you can see there we're not having full coverage. So we're going to repeat the process for our cornices and our light fittings all the way around this room here. Then I'll come back and I'll show you guys how to roll it. So now we're going to start rolling the ceiling. What I like to do is take the shortest path. What I mean by that is this section here is in a rectangle shape. The longer side goes along here and the shorter side is going across this way. So what I'm going to do is take the shortest path, and the reason why I do that is so I don't run out of paint halfway through, and then I'm going to have to go load up and go and continue that long path again and worry about my lap lines, worry about making sure everything's nice and flat. It's a lot easier to take the shorter path. One more thing, get an extension pole, get the longest pole that you can find that's going to allow you to get a lot more control over the actual roller. This one here is fairly short, but it's an extendable one. The other one is in the car and I can't be bothered going outside to grab it. So we're going to quickly start rolling. Once we get to this light fitting here, what I like to do is just roll around the whole light fitting. It might look a bit funny, but the reason why I do that is because we're using the larger roller. It's really hard to get in nice and tight into that light fitting. So I like to go around the edge of that light fitting by simply rolling it around. Then I'll come and I'll just layer everything off afterwards. So I'll quickly show you guys what that looks like. So just start somewhere in the middle, making sure you always want to go over your work at least twice, and remembering over here we want to go close up to that edge, so I'm going to take my time because I'm using that metal frame and I really don't want to damage these cornices. So once we've done that, roll it all the way through, at least twice over the same area, and we're starting to run out of paint now. So I'll quickly get this little section here that's next to the corners. This section here I need to take my time because this carrier does cause some serious damage to the cornices. So that's one section completely done, and you can see I finished that all in one load of the roller. So I'm going to quickly keep going all the way through. Once I start my next line, I start a little bit further away from where I finished before. That way I can blend everything in nicely. Once again, running out of paint. So we run it all the way across, layer everything off. Make sure you've got no lap lines or lap marks, which is basically just excess paint on the edge of the roller. Now that section over here to my right is completely done. I don't have to touch that again. What I'm going to do now is quickly roll around that light fitting so that by the time I get to it, I can just go as close as I need to that light fitting. So I just take off some of that excess paint. Go as close as I can to that light fitting. And that's why I cut in a little bit wider. So now I'm overlapping all that area. Once again, make sure there's no more lap marks. So just lightly go over the top. That section is perfect. And just repeat the whole process all the way along. And once it's all done, this here is the finished product. So the two most important things to take out of this video is don't buy a cheap roller and don't buy cheap paint. It's going to make your life so much easier and you're going to get a nice consistent finish every single time. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video and you've learned something new. As always, like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Bill. Thanks for watching Billshowto.